Welcome back to another bonus episode of Big Business. And I've got another DM that's landed in the Big Business DMs. By the way, you can DM us on Big Business on Instagram, and the DMs are monitored by myself, producer Xander, and April. And we're always keeping our eye out and we're collecting everyone's questions specifically for these episodes. So let's just get straight into this one. This one is about retail staff. Hey, I don't know why it's taken me so long to discover your pod? ? Well, better late than never. And also, thank you for finally listening, because I've been saying for over a year now that everyone needs to listen to my business podcast, because it's not just for business owners, like it's for everyone. Anyway, let's continue reading this. Please keep this anonymous if you cover it. I have a few issues with retail staff that have gotten away from me. Things like retail staff being on phones at work, online shopping on the work computer when it's quiet, obviously not in front of me, taking extra breaks to move their cars throughout the day because they park somewhere free instead of getting paid parking for the day. And the hardest one to address is that they just don't look presentable enough at work, but it's not easy to bring up someone's appearance, you know? How would you address these things without making them feel like you're piling on? Are they just Gen Z things? And do I need to be more relaxed about it? Or am I a pushover for letting it get this bad? Okay. I don't want to say that you're a pushover for letting it get this bad. I instead want to say that you're obviously a really nice person and you're really mindful that you don't want to upset people. But I do think, I don't know if this is your retail store or if you're the manager of the store. I'm just going to guess that it's like you're the owner of the store. This does kind of fall back on you because, I know it sounds really mean, but I'm even speaking just like from my own perspective as well. It falls back on you, and what it sounds like is you just need to have way more policies and procedures in place for when you get new team members. And the tricky thing is obviously you already have existing team members, so you're kind of going to have to do a refresher with all of them. And there is nothing wrong with doing that. And I know you will feel like you're micromanaging all of a sudden or bringing up all of these issues out of nowhere. But to all of my managers out there and all of my business owners out there, this is a prime example of why it's so important to have open communication in the workplace. Because if we act kind of like pushovers, I hate that word, but you know what I mean. If we act like pushovers and if we're always really nice and we don't ever bring up a single thing, like these little things that start to bother you, when you do get to the point of bringing it up, your staff are going to be like, what the fuck? Like, you know, because you've never acted that way before, or you've never spoken with them in that kind of way where you've addressed concerns. And I did this myself in the early days of Fate, and I talk about this all the time, but I was really friendly. I was way too nice. So when I eventually built up the courage to like say to my staff, hey, stop sitting on the counter when there's customers in the store, they get offended and upset by it. Not because they're being called out, but because they're not used to you telling them what to do kind of thing. And so to all of my business owners out there and even managers, always just be really clear when you communicate to your staff or your team members so that when you do have to bring up other things, it's not going to throw everyone off. And they're not going to be like, why the fuck is she all of a sudden telling us that we're not looking presentable enough, you know? It's just so important to have open communication, clear boundaries and clear policies in place so that no one can ever say, we were never told that we had to dress a certain way kind of thing. So what I would do if I was you is I'm going to assume that you have like some sort of employee handbook. And then what you could also do is kind of have like a separate handbook for your retail staff. And it could be more about like the workplace, the culture, expectations, and then you can include all the things in there like arriving on time, your break time allowances, parking, all that kind of info, like where people can park, you know, because I'm assuming that you're in a shopping centre and they have like the staff car park or whatever where you pay the $5 a day or whatever. And then you could have a whole section in there about uniform and grooming. Like we have the same For our Fate store teams, it's not to say like you need to look like this, but you can have like a guideline of, this is how we like to show up to work. We like to look smart, polished, professional. You can just say things like hair just neatly done, whether that's up or down. You can put things in there without like picking on people's appearance, because I understand what you mean. Like you can't just be calling out people for the way that they look, but you can just have broad guidelines that everyone adheres to and they apply to absolutely every single employee. Then you can also have a section in this like handbook about phones at work. So for example, with us at Fate, all of our staff know that we can't have our phones on the shop floor. We can't be going on our phones in front of customers. But we also say, if you need to pop out the back and check your phone for whatever reason, that's absolutely fine. I know some workplaces will be like, lock it in the lockers and you don't have it until your lunch break. But as for us, like we, I guess, have the respect between our store teams and ourselves that we trust. Like pop out the back, right back to someone that's messaged you. Like that's absolutely fine by us. Obviously don't pop out the back and scroll on TikTok for hours, but it's up to you what you want those rules to look like with phones on the floor. Online shopping on the work computer when it's quiet. Oh, that's a tricky one. Oh, you would think and hope that people would just have the decency to like not do that, but and it seems like it would be second nature when you're a business owner to just not do that. But I think back to when I was young and working in retail, I didn't give a fuck. I didn't give a fuck about anything. I didn't give a fuck about the KPIs. I didn't give a shit about anything. Like you don't care in the way that like a business owner would. That's not to say, hey, maybe some of our Fate team do care as much as I do, which I absolutely love, but we can't put the pressure on staff to think the way that we do. And at the end of the day, like one thing that I always remind myself of is, yes, of course, like I want everyone that's working at Fate and working in our stores to like love their jobs. But at the end of the day, let's be realistic. To these team members, it could just be a job, like just somewhere they go, they show up, they do their shift, they talk with their co-workers, they bludge around, they shop on the computer, and they go home. I think it's unrealistic for us to expect that our staff are going to like think the same way as us and be the same way as us. But I think as the owner or manager, you can definitely have some systems and policies and handbooks in place that you run through with everyone so that they all know like the basic rules of the workplace. Now, obviously, it's going to be hard for you to introduce this new handbook to an already existing team, but this is when you just have to remember hard conversations, easy life. Easy conversations, hard life. I always say that saying, and this is a great example of easy conversations, hard life. You haven't brought up any of this stuff with your team and it's gotten to the point now where your life is becoming hard because of it. So you need to have not a hard conversation, but you might have to do like a team meeting night, invite them in for an hour or two, put on a dinner, do pizzas and whatever, tell them that they'll be paid for their time and say, I'm just tightening up things at our workplace. We're entering a new era. Our team's going to be growing soon and I just want to have all of these new policies and this new handbook in place so that we're all on the same page. And make it a positive team bonding activity night, And I think if I was you, I'd just run through it with them. And at the end of the day, I think the things that you're going to present to them are more than fair on your part. You're going to have a uniform and grooming guide. You're going to have a thing about parking. You can have a thing about lunch breaks. You could have a thing about not moving your car around. You could maybe, if you're not wanting to go there and say, don't shop on the computer, you can say like, you just can't use the work computer for personal things. Like you can just keep it very broad And sandwich a heap of other things in there if you want as well, so that the handbook isn't just about the issues that you're having with them. Instead, just make it really broad and almost write it from the perspective of this would be something that you'd be happy to hand to a new employee when they start, and just run the team through it. Also use that as an opportunity when you do your staff, training night, to ask them for feedback. Like maybe they'll have some suggestions for you and the store. Make them feel involved in it, and just make the whole thing about all of us coming together. We're tightening up our processes, and all the things that you want to touch on with them are so fair enough. If any of them are going to be upset by it, I'm sorry, that's not how the world works. You cannot be upset if your boss is just telling you that you need to finish your break on time and not use your phone on the floor. These are just standard practices in all retail jobs, and if they go and work somewhere else, the same sort of standard rules will apply. So that's what I would do if I were you. I know exactly how you feel about awkward bringing this up with them, but I think if you make it a whole team thing and you involve everyone, you can also say that this is going to be the same handbook that you run all new employees that may start through. Then I don't think it's going to be as bad as you think. And I would hope that, your employees will come to the table, they'll be on board, they'll have a great time, and they'll respect you enough to just clean up their act a little bit. But that's exactly what I would do if I was you. And then hopefully once that's all done, then if you ever have anyone new join the team, when they first start, sit them down, go through this handbook, go through all your guidelines, go through your uniform and grooming policy, have them sign off on it, have them ask you any questions as you're going through it. And then because you've got that in place, if anything ever does happen down the track, let's say they start taking way longer on breaks or they're on the phone on the floor, then you'll just have to have a little chat with them and say, hey, you will remember when you first started and we went through our handbook, you heard all of our rules surrounding break times and phones on the floor. Because then you've just always got that there as your backup, and just clear communication is key. One of my number one pieces of advice for any business owner out there, or if you're managing a team, just be really open with your communication and bring things up immediately, even if it's the tiniest little thing, because if not, you can find yourself maybe in a position like you're in where you've got a million things that you're fuming about, but you can't bring any of them up because you've let them go on for too long. It's just so important to just raise the tiniest little flags if anything ever bugs you, just so your staff are used to you just chatting with them openly about stuff. Because if not, you might absolutely crack and have a big blow up one day, and then shit will absolutely hit the fan. So that is my number one tip for business owners when you're managing staff, or managers if you're managing staff. Have clear, open communication both ways, from manager to employee and from employee to manager or owner. Communication is key. So thank you so much for sending through this question, and good luck. And remember, do it scared. Hard conversations, easy life. That's all for today's bonus episode, and I'll be back next week with my main.